Hey everybody, this is me, Undead Viking, coming to you with another video review. The game that I am going to be reviewing today is a game called Westerly. Now, Westerly is a game of expansion to the west during the colonial days of America. This is basically an Oregon Trail-esque type game. It is a cooperative game where everybody bands together in their covered wagon and attempts to basically survive. And much like when you played Oregon Trail back when you were younger, and if you were a child of the 70s and 80s like I am, you probably did play a lot of it. You won't survive. The chances that that each player ends the game with the character they start with is very, very rare in this game. It is a very brutal co-op, but it's one of those weird co-ops that also has its ideas firmly planted in the humor of the situation. And this is a game that is, when you do win, because the game can be very brutal, it is an achievement. But what is more fun about the game than actually winning and having that achievement of actually being successful is the story that takes place as you move across the West and the hijinks and the calamities that you are faced with. And I did a review of this actually a while back, and the Kickstarter at that time was canceled by the designers due to the fact that I believe they changed publishing companies, or the production company that they were contracting went from being here in America to China. And because of that, they had to change some price points and what have you. And so they asked me, and then one of the good things about that was that while they were searching for another publishing company to make their game for them, they were able to go out and play test the game more thoroughly, go to a lot of different conventions and what have you, and showcase the game. And the designers were able to refine the game and change it up. And they changed it up and refined it enough that they did ask me if I'd be willing to do another video for them. And because I thought the first time on the game I had was an absolute blast, I said, yeah, send me the updated components or what have you. And it's basically like they changed the cards around, they changed a few rules, and kind of like reduced a lot of the fiddliness of the game and focused more on the narrative and the storytelling aspect of the game, which was the part of the game that I loved the absolute most when I played it. So when they told me about what the refinements were and the changes were, I was very excited to try out the new game. And even though I had a blast playing the old one, it's one of those things where it's like, wow, it's like little subtle changes made a big difference. And the game was even a bigger hit with my gaming group. So as I always do, I'm going to show you how to play the game, and I'm going to run through that. And this will be a little easier because, like I said, there's not a lot of the game has been simplified a little bit. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to tell you exactly what I like about the game. And it's pretty much going to be what I said before. So if you watch the same video, you're going to get the same rigmarole that I said at that time. But if you haven't, or if you want to listen to me talk about that again, feel free. But I'm really excited about this Kickstarter because I really want to see what the end result of this game is. I've seen some of the updated art that they've uploaded that to Board Game Geek about how they're going to change up the color, like the look of the tiles and what have you. And so I'm really excited about what they're going to do with it, and I'm really excited about them getting this game published. So how to play Westerly, I'll show that with the new rules, and then we'll come back here, and then I'll tell you exactly why I like this game. And as always, hopefully somewhere along the way, while you listen to me talk and show you what the game is all about, you will figure out whether or not this is a game that you want to add to your collection, and then you will go to their Kickstarter page and give them some of your hard-earned money. So, alright, here we go. How to play Westerly. Okay, what you see in front of you is obviously the game of Westerly and all the different components you'll be using for a 6-player game. I do have all 6 players on the wagon here, though I'd only have 1 player card out just basically because obviously I don't have enough room to show everything. Before I actually show how the different like how a turn works in the game and drawing the tiles out as you move slowly west trying to reach California, I'm just going to kind of show the different components and what you'll be using. If you've played games with variable player powers, you're probably well familiar with some sort of a player card. This is basically what you see in front of you. There's a spot for your player, your character, when you draw that. You can have 2 items equipped at any time, and so those spots for those items. You have your little picture of your silhouette here, and you have cylinders to mark the damage. That, like, your arms and your torso and legs and head, as you take damage, you use these to mark those. If you ever get ill, you can see minor illness, major illness. There's a death tracker, which is kind of funny. Each time your character dies, like after the first time you die, you come back with a character with a burden, which is from this deck. And notice how the one characters are normal, they're perfectly fine. Burden characters have a quirk to them, have something that maybe is not going to help the party out that often. I'll show you some of those here in just a little bit. But if the first time you die, you get a character with a burden. The second time you die, you get a character with a burden. But the last time, if you actually manage to die a third time, or I should say a second time and have a third character, you get a double burden card. And those characters are pretty ridiculous as far as their ineptitude and what they actually bring to the table. But I'll show that to you in just a little bit. There are the different stat trackers you have for your constitution, and also for the different abilities your character has. Grit, gumption, learnin, and pioneerin. Those are nice quaint terms for fighting ability, charisma, intelligence, and kind of wisdom, if you will. When the game begins, what happens is that each person will get dealt 2 of these cards. And then one person is picked as the wagon master. And starting the person to that person's left, the people will look at these 2 cards and they'll pick one without showing anybody else. They put their discard face down on the board, and then they put that in front of them. And each person then will do that until you get back to the wagon master, who then everybody reveals the character that they chose. And then the wagon master gets to kind of look at what everybody else picked, and then he gets to see, or she gets to see, if they have a character that can maybe fulfill a role. Like if you don't have a doctor or something, then maybe he can choose somebody that would be able to have that. And so characters are pretty straightforward. I mean, they just have a name, obviously up here. Tells you what their occupation is, tells you how much money they start with. It gives you their starting stats over here. It gives them a little background or whatever, funny, and you should always read that aloud so everybody can have a good chuckle at it. And then, and this game is very humorous, and it's like very tongue-in-cheek, punny, very dry. So if you like that type of humor, you'll enjoy that. And then there's always like, not everybody has something like this, but I mean, there's usually some like quirk or something that affects the gameplay. It's like when this educated gentleman is in the wagon, everyone just feels a little bit smarter and has their learning increased by 1. So, this guy's, as far as that's concerned. And not everybody is somebody that is like a professor. You have the corduroy kid. And obviously he's a ranger, so he's got a little bit more physical stats than the professor. And but you'll notice there's this thing down here that says PG, and that isn't like a rating for a movie. It is that this character has a penchant for gambling, and when that happens, when you run into a settlement that actually has a gambling house, normally you have like an option to gamble, but people that have a penchant for gambling pretty much just have to gamble. But they're better than it. They're better at it than most people. So there's obviously there's tons of these characters, which is pretty awesome actually. And here's like the great old Doc Sawbones, as you can see, very grimly sawing off a leg. And then they actually has the ability to amputate a limb to cure any illness without lowering constitution. But thankfully, the sick person gets to choose the limb that gets. There's tons and tons and tons of these characters. Everybody picks one, like I said. Let's just go ahead and grab one here that looks fun. I played him the other day, so I'm gonna put Leroy Cookie down here, and he's obviously the cook, and so he we'll just go ahead and put that down there. And well, just quickly, you can see like his stats are 3 Constitution, 4 Grit, 2 Gumption, 3 Learning, and 3 Pioneering. So he's actually pretty good. And so we put that on there, and then we just adjust our stats to match what he has, like so. So there we go. And 2 Gumption, and Learning of 3, and Pioneering of 3. Now, we have stats, and that's cool and all, but what do stats mean? Well, stats are basically telling you how much dice you get to roll. And so we have these big chunky dice, of course. So if we have an encounter or a situation where Leroy has to roll dice, there's 2 things you have to consider. Constitution is the number of times he gets to re-roll. So if you have a high Constitution, you get to re-roll your dice multiple times. But so like with 3, Cookie gets to roll his dice 3 times. The stat on the actual thing, like Grit or Gumption or whatever, tells you how many dice you get to roll. But depending on the encounter, you don't have to roll all the dice. So if like Cookie had to like do a Gumption test, he probably would end up using, because he's only got 2, he's going to use 2 dice, because whenever you do use it, you have to move your stat down by that number. And so he would like get to roll 2 dice and 3 times over. And depending on where you're at in the board, and I'll show this to you in just a little bit, you either need 6s to succeed or 5s and 6s to succeed. So if he was rolling twice and we'd test once, we'd roll, and like, well, maybe hopefully if it was 5s and 6s, that was 1. Maybe he needs 2 successes, that'd be 1 reroll. We roll again, and then we'll roll a 3rd time, and then, oh yeah, all right, way to go, Cookie, you got your 2 successes. So things like that. So that's the basic mechanic of the game. Very, very simple to understand. So so you'd lower your Gumption down to that, and you'd be out of Gumption. And so basically, if you were in a situation where the Gumption stat was needed, Cookie just couldn't do it. He just doesn't have that ability. The other thing is that to get your stats back, you need to make it to a settlement. And once you make it to a settlement, as you're moving across the wilderness, all of your stats on everybody just automatically refresh. And also going to a settlement heals any injuries that you might have, and also heals any illnesses that you might have. And you have the chance of healing broken bones and broken body parts at those places as well. Now, I was just, before I move forward and show you more, I was going to show you just kind of some of these other characters. Now, these are the characters that have a single burden, like Arnold Benedictine. Obviously, once again, little jokes or whatever. His stats are still, fairly good, but he donates half the group's money to the almighty Cod when entering every settlement while he is active. So as soon as you go into settlement, half your money down the drain. Things like that. Duffy Wilfred Scott III. When Duffy joins the group, he chases off all the women folk in the wagon unless Larry McAllister kills him first. So you can see lots of weird things going on with these particular characters. And where's the one I do like, if I can find her? Of course, I'm not going to be able to find her now. Here we go. The Ginger Greenback, the woman of ill repute, earns $2 per settlement. However, upon leaving town, everyone rolls, and the person who rolls the lowest gets a minor illness. Haha, get it? So there you go. So the people with the burdens, like they add a little something to the game, and it's something that makes it more challenging, if you will. So now here are the and if you make it to double burden, which is horrible, here's when things start getting really bad. You have a leper, and basically when Hank is active, everyone must make health check rolls. You have the drunk. You have the invalid, old Gummy Jasper. Yeah, basically can't do anything. So a baby. So these are the ones that if you ever get these, you're pretty much bait at that point. You'll be the first person thrown into the wolves, literally, when things go bad. So you start off the game, and everybody gets to. I got paper money with the game, but I always use poker chips instead of paper money. But everybody gets their money to start with, and you can throw whatever money you wish of your personal money into the pile, to buy your starting provisions. However, you can keep some if you so desire, so you can have some to spend later. And then you spend money buying oxen. For $5, you can get a team of oxen. It's always best to spend money and get as many oxen as you possibly can, because the more oxen you have, the more tiles you get to draw, and then you get to pick which tile you want to use. You can also buy food, obviously, and this is the track that tells food. Every time you move, you spend a food, and starvation happens very quickly, and it's very gruesome. And then also you can buy medicine, which is tracked like this. The other thing that you use is that you will go ahead and you have an item deck that you can purchase things on. And the item deck, when you purchase items, you draw two, and at the start of the game, you draw two and you get to pick one. So you can look at the items and you can see, well, there's a 10-gallon hat, it gives you a gumption +1, and a bullwhip, 1 extra set of oxen. So it's like, oh, well, that's pretty cool. Like, if you got that, you can spend a little less money on your oxen and things like that. And so there's tons of items, like, paddle, a reading spoon, and then things like normal, like a rifle and things like that. So let's say we got lucky and we got a rifle, and that adds 2 to the gumption. So we go ahead and we can just go ahead and add that directly to Cookie's gumption. So he's a little bit better now with just doing his persuasion, because, well, he's got a big rifle that he's pointing at people and convincing them that they shouldn't be messing with him, if you will. So after everybody's done and you've spent all your money and you've outfitted your group, the wagon master, there's numbers on the spots in the wagon. And the wagon master gets number 1, and then around the table clockwise you fill out the wagon. This is important because when something bad happens and you have to roll a die to see what it happens to, that'll tell you, like, a 1 happens to the wagon master. If anybody ever dies, like, you die, everybody kind of moves up and shuffles up, like so. And when the person comes back with their burden character, they take the spot number 6 in the back of the wagon. So, after everybody's ready and raring to go, what happens is that you have this big bag, and we have a full set of oxen, so we will draw 3 tiles, we will pick one of the 3, and then we will put 1 back, and then we can keep 1 tile to use later. Now, this is actually one of the things that happens at the very beginning. What you're shooting for is, like, if you can't have a river to start off at the very beginning, and you can't have like a settlement right away for the very first turn, because you're moving west, and so you start over here and you move west on the board. So we're going to look at our 3, and we have a couple of curves, and we have a T-section like so. So we'll start with that one. So we'll go ahead and place that down, and now technically, we are right there, and so that's where the party is located. And so now, because we moved west, what we will do is that you'll notice that these 3 decks of cards: north, south, and west. Now, when you move west, any of the things that you run into on this, a 5 or a 6 is what you need to pass the test. When you move north or south, you only get to roll a 6 to try to succeed. And when you're moving west, you have to move west 12 times to make it to California. So moving west is always in your best interest, but sometimes, as you can obviously see, you don't get to. And so, and then for just so you understand, we were going to keep this tile because next turn we're going to put that there so we can curve and head west again. And when you're playing, it should be noted that, like, this, like, imaginary line right here is where we will be actually drawing cards that are west. If you draw a card that's up here, you have a tile and you're on that side, you will draw a card that says north on it, and obviously if you're on a tile down here, you'll draw a card that says south on it. So we'll turn the card over and we'll see, and this is what you have. You have a herd of majestic buffalo meats, and so it's a hunt. And so it says right here that if you pass it, this is what your reward. You'll get $5 for the buffalo pelts. And then down here, you can see, like you also, get 5 food as well. But you can see that these are the different stats that you'll be rolling against. Grit, and that is gumption, and that is the learning and pioneering. And you can see they're all 2. And so I'm not, so like Cookie just says, well, it's like somebody else can take this one, and we'll just, somebody who's got like rolls 4 dice to see if they can get their 5 and 6, and right off the bat, bam, they get it the first roll, and so they succeed. And so you can add that 5 food to the party, and if they bought a bunch of food to start off with, they, oh great, we got a bunch of food now, and then they can also take 5 monies as well. Now, here's the thing though. You'll notice that there's this little marker right here. And that means that if you had failed, one of the things that happens is that somebody then would get hurt if like you had failed the test. And one little meeple there means one person gets hurt. If you have a meeple, or let's see here, if you have a result that has a gravestone on there, that means that one person just dies. If you have a situation with more than one, that means that 2 people get hurt. And the one that's probably like the worst thing you can possibly happen is that you have this catastrophic damage result, which means that like you are rolling to see how many limbs get broken, not so much the like which possibly taking a point of damage. Now damage is really interesting how it works. The first thing you do is you're going to take 2 dice. And the first thing you do is you're going to roll 1 die, and that's going to tell you what part of your body is injured. And so you roll a die, and that's not a good roll, actually, because a 1 is your melon. That is your head. And you probably can't see it, but it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 is your pride, or your torso, if you will. After you rolled, see what got hurt, you'll roll another die to see how badly it's hurt. And that is actually like the worst roll possible. So if that had happened, that means, because a 1 is, the thing is torn clear off, a 2 or 3 means it's broken, and a 4, 5, 6 means it's hurt. A 2, a broken head, means you're dead. So if that had actually happened to poor Cookie Jenkins, then that character would have been dead. If it hurt, what you would do is you'd just take a little marker and you'd mark that down that you're hurt, and then you would lower your constitution by 1 for the duration of that. And then when you're just hurt, though, after 1 full turn, you'd actually then the hurt would go away and you get your constitution back. It should be noted that if you ever actually have a situation where you get injured, like both your arms get hurt or you get like multiple broken bones, you don't lose a constitution for each injury. You only ever lose 1 possible. Now, in the case of that meeple that got shattered, the catastrophic damage, what you'll do is the first thing you'll do is you roll a die, and that die will tell you how many different parts of your body get hurt. And this would mean like 5 different parts of your body just got hurt. And then you would roll a bunch of dice to determine which parts of your body got hurt. In this case, it would probably be easier just to roll 1 die to see which part of your body didn't get hurt. And then you would then roll for each location to see how badly it got hurt. And you can see then how the game can be quite deadly and quite gruesome if you don't have somebody roll well. And that's why one of the things I really like about the game is that each person has to kind of manage their abilities and make sure that there's always somebody that has a decent number and a stat available in case you run into something that is going to put one of your characters up against it, if you will, as far as having bad luck. So the next turn, what happens is that once again we got that, we passed that. We're gonna draw out of the bag again, and we're gonna see what we get, and we'll just go ahead and we'll place this down like we had before. And so now we're heading back on track. We're heading west. We're gonna try to get to California. So in this case, we're in the north area, so we'll draw this. And it's like a critter or an illness, snake in your boots. And so, so here you have, like, it's possible somebody dying, and then you have a situation where, this is a one where, having a fighting ability is good. Gumption just doesn't work. You notice there's an X there. But having learning and pioneering, you get, you need the 4 successes or whatever for that. So you're going to want to have somebody who has a good grit score and roll against this and try to get a lot of 6s and have enough rerolls to get that. And so you can see, and like it should be noted that these decks of cards are huge. I mean, and there's tons of them, and it's just all kinds of crazy little encounters that are very imaginative, but also very, some of them are a little fantastic in nature, like a rabid jackalope and what have you, but, a lot of them are just very real. Now, there are like 2 separate tiles, like I said, I really wanted to show off, and the first one is like a settlement tile, and I'm just going to look in the bag here and grab one, and the second one is a river tile. And rivers are probably like these 2 things are on the separate spectrums of things. Settlements are great. When you run into a settlement, like I said, everybody gets healed up. If you have a broken body part, you have a chance to heal that. Basically, you roll a die, and then if you and then if you, as long as you don't roll a 1, means that pretty much means your body part just falls off and you actually lose it completely. You can get that healed. And also what happens is you draw one of these settlement cards. And the settlement cards have a description of the settlement, what it is. It tells you if you can buy oxen. So like if you lose oxen, which is very possible, sometimes you'll have to kill them for food. Oh, it should be noted also, if you ever like die of starvation, like if a person dies of starvation, their original constitution score is comes back and actually gives you food for doing that. So cannibalism does exist in this game, if you were wondering. But and this plus means that there's a hospital, meaning you can get an illness healed immediately if you're ill, and if you and then the dice, obviously, as I said before, means that you can gamble there, and then it tells you what you can buy at these locations, and so on and so forth. I mentioned illness. If you have a doctor in your group, he can try to heal an illness using the medicine that you have, but also every time you move, you get to roll a die. And, well, a 1, God, I'm rolling horrible. A 1 means you just die. It just happens. A 2 through 5 on an illness means it just stays with you, and you're like slowly getting more and more sick as it goes on, and it could eventually kill you anyway. But a 6 just means you're like miraculously healed. And obviously, illness was very, very dangerous back in the old West pioneering days. Now, the last thing I'm going to show you is one of these. It's a river tile. And rivers are, without a doubt, debilitating in a way. Because what happens is that because you have to ford the river, and there's no bridges or anything, you will draw one of these cards, like this. The Tragedy Falls. And there are 3 different things about it that you have to know. There's how wide it is, meaning that it's going to take a lot of movement to get across it. How deep it is, which means how much it can damage your group. And also you have to roll a die to determine how fast the water is raging. The water can be super calm, it can be rapid, or it could be just kind of flowing quickly. And rapid obviously is much worse. If you're rolling a 1 for the rapids, or for it's rapids, and a 2 or 3 is swift, and a 4, 5, or 6 is calm. Now, so you get to the river and you roll a die, and it's calm. Now, if I had rolled a 1, which I expected to do because I was rolling horribly, you can just sit there and wait, and then roll again to see if the river, you use up a food, but you can wait. But that's not that's good though, because if it's calm, that's good, because each person then gets to decide which stat they want to use to try to help cross the river. And this is one where you want to use up as much as possible, because what happens is that each person, like say Gummy Joe decides that, or I'm sorry, not Gummy Joe, Cookie Jenkins decides he's got his 4 gumption, and he's going to use all 4 of his dice. And so you take those dice, and then you take these red dice over here, and you take half as many of the dice that you would roll, and you round it down. And in this case, actually, it might work better in this case if you just rolls one red die, rolls 3, and then round it down. If it was swift, you round up, and then if it's rapids, you roll equal. And then each person would roll, and then everybody has to decide this before everybody rolls. And so you roll, and then you total it up. And so this would be 8 and 2 minus 6, so he got a 6 total. And that means he got 60 feet. And then the next person rolls to see how many feet they get, and the next person rolls, and so on and so forth. And as long as you reach the number of feet that the river is wide, then you've passed the river and you can continue on. Now, a lot of times, like, you'll be in a situation where you're just not going to be able to get past the river, in which case then you have to backtrack. And you start going back the same way, and then you're going to go this way, and you're going to try to find a different way to get to where you're going. Now, backtracking isn't the most horrible thing in the world, because of the fact that you don't run into any encounters because you've cleared the way already, but you do use up food. Now, some situations will happen where, I mean, let's just say, like, this happened, and there's rivers on both sides, and you're boned. You just can't do it. You can trailblaze a new path in the situation. You can then just get here and you can move in the direction that normally you can't go. It does cost you a set of oxen to do that, but you can trailblaze a new path and just going if you just can't get past those rivers that are there. So that isn't everything about the game. I did like kind of gloss over a few rules, but you can definitely check out the rules. They're able to download, and you can check out the rules for Westerly. But that's basically how this game works, and it is one of these games that, like, everybody has the ability to add their input, to add their ideas, and it's all about, like I said, making sure that there's at least one person that has a decent amount of stat in one of the things at all times. Just so if you do run into something that is really bad, you can have at least a shot at passing the test. So, well, there you go. That's how you play Westerly. And as always, let me tell you exactly what I think about the game, and we'll go from there. All right. Moo. All right, so there you go. That's how you play Westerly. If you haven't watched the other video, then don't worry about it. But if you had watched it, you can kind of see where some of the changes happened and what like they pretty much got rid of like all those little item tokens or whatever and all that stuff that was going on. They changed up. They totally removed the dexterity portion for the river, which, while I was a little disappointed that happened, I totally understand why, because of the fact that, obviously it's a whole nother board and getting it out and just like, okay, right now we're gonna roll these dice, and it was kind of like it was a portion of the game that didn't really fit, into it. And like I said, I'm talking about something that you probably have no idea of what I'm speaking of. And also, like, the most important thing is they've shortened down the length of the game. Before, it was a very long process to get through the entire game, but now, they've gotten it down to that 12 tiles, moving west. And the fact that it's shorter, but they've also, like, I noticed that, like, before, in the older game, it was a longer game. It just seemed like it was like kind of like this death march where you were like, having this it's like every step you took, it was just this slow incremental reduction of what you were, and it was fun, and it was kind of interesting to like watch that shuffling towards the end, towards the goal line. But what this one is that they just ramped up the brutality a great deal, and so like you don't really notice that it's like a slow progress. It's more of like just like bam, there goes you just lost your arm, and crack, you broke your leg, and where the game can be a little more bloody and you start like your guys start dying off a lot quicker. I felt like the transition was welcome, and I also really enjoyed it due to the fact that it really added a lot to the narrative, and that's what I'm going to talk about. I could talk with you. I mean, the mechanics alone aren't really anything that you've probably haven't seen in other games. I mean, this game is firmly on the thematic Ameritrash spectrum of games. You're rolling dice to hit target numbers. You know, you're maintaining certain resources. You're flipping and the encounter cards. I mean, you know, and things like that. Variable player powers. You know, but where this game shines is the group dynamic and the narrative that you have. And this game is, in my opinion, perfect for that gaming group that's been playing games together for quite a long time. You have those in-jokes between you and your buddies. You have shared experiences. You have, you know, this. You've watched the same movies. You've read the same books. Things like that. And as these things happen in the game, you are actually then. This is one of those games, and I've said this before. You start acting things out, and when something really bad happens to you, or you get 2 broken arms, you know, due to the fact that you got eaten by a sea monster or something, you know, you just you're like cursing the other people for not rolling better, or you're getting angry about your own luck and things like that. And the game there's certain people that I play with, like my buddy Jason, who is just the worst die roller of all time. And so whenever he screws up, you know, it's just like that running gag where it's like, oh God, Jason's got the dice. Everyone, like, you know, turn your eyes and stuff like that. And it's that fun time that you're having telling that story of the bandits and the chupacabra and the lake monster and the yeti and the Sasquatch and things like that, and you're telling that awesome story. I shouldn't have said yeti, it's a Sasquatch. Of course it's a Sasquatch, you know, but anyway, you know, it's that progression. It's that, and this is one of those games where you put aside and like the next time you take it out, you say, it's like, oh yeah, I remember we got that, and that's when you totally screwed up your roll and it caused Craig to get shot in the head, you know, and he's like, oh yeah, that's what and that's where the game shines, and that's where the game is fun. You know, it does meet my criteria for a co-op that I can enjoy. Because, I mean, and if you watch my videos about co-ops, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But first of all, it has to beat the hell out of me, and this game does. You know, a co-op should not be easy, and 2, it should not turn into one person telling everybody else what to do. I totally dislike co-ops that have situations where people are just like, okay, now you go there and you're going to do that. You go there and you're going to do that. I mean, that's one of my biggest complaints about Pandemic. And but you know, and 3, you have to let individual players shine in their moments, and so each person has to feel like they're contributing something, and that's a major part. I mean, because nobody likes to play a co-op game where it's just like, you know, okay, there you go, you know, yeah, you got it again, you know. And a lot of the games that I play, like a lot of the co-op games that I play, you know, sometimes that happens, you know, and it's just like, you know, there's still enough going on, and sometimes you have to play the game again, and then you're like, oh, okay, you know, like, then it's this person's turn to shine. But in this game, it's like, it seems like each and every time, because you're using up your resources to be able to pass a certain test, eventually it falls upon, like, old Doc Sawbones to have to fight the wolves. It was something that he's not good at doing, you know, and it forces them, and that's where that triumphant great roll can come out of, and you can get super excited about the fact that you've managed to succeed when the odds are against you. Or when they fail utterly, you can say, you've doomed us all, you totally screwed us, now we're not going to make it. And that's where, once again, like, the story comes out, the dynamic comes out, and the fact of the matter is that you forget about whether or not you're actually winning the game, and you're just focusing on having the fun that the game gives you. And that's why I love the hell out of Westerly, and I really think that if you are a fan of co-op games, if you're a fan of, like, a thematic narrative co-op game, if you like the Old West theme, if you were a fan of Oregon Trail when you were growing up, I definitely think you should give this game a look, and I highly recommend it if you fall into one or more of those categories of people. So there you go. That's Westerly. I post the link down below. You can click on that. You can go check out their Kickstarter page. You can see what else they have and all the different art and everything like that. And you can go to Board Game Geek as well. Like I said, they've uploaded a lot of pictures of art and like the different changes they've done and so on and so forth. And those might be very interesting for you to check out. If you have any questions or concerns about the game or whatever in general, post those. I'll try to answer those to the best of my ability. I'm certain that the designers will be more than happy to answer those questions as well. As always, I appreciate you taking the time to watch these videos, and thank you very much for that. And until next time, have an awesome day. This is Undead Viking. You take it easy. Bye-bye.